Issue 170. We start out with some narration at first wasting a bunch of text telling us stuff we already know, and then finally getting to the point that a device Uncle Chuck and Dr. Quack built might get the king out of the coma, but it would need a Chaos Emerald to work. I really like that they actually thought to use a Chaos Emerald to wake him up. I'm surprised it took them that long though. And why can't they just use a magic ring to wish him out of the coma at that point? Sonic reassures Sally, who looks all haggard with stress lines from worrying, that Rotor and Tails rigged up something to make emerald grabbing easier. If they can just do that, then why didn't they just make an emerald locator a long time ago? Tails, using the hologram projecting his parents, relates to Sally about losing his family, and then Sonic sees Rotor's new star post, which will get them to wherever they need to be. So these convenient star posts bring them to the Zone of Silence. Also, the text blurb describes the zone as a pocket dimension and not a whole dimension by itself, so that came out of nowhere as a distinction. Somehow, Tails thinks the Zone of Silence is more colorful than before when it always looks psychedelic. Then Sonic says it looks more trippy. Again, while it's different, it's not more trippy. Then after Tails lampshades that Knuckles would have been able to sense the emeralds if only they thought to bring him along, they get approached by Feist the giant panda, who finally reappears. Are they going to explain why Kodos was fine after being blasted by a laser in front of the king by him earlier? Nope. Feist then judges in favor of Sonic, fortunately, saying that he saw him combat his former master Ixis. Ixis was his master? I thought it would be the other way around, if anything. And he had seen Tails send the Chaos Emeralds into the zone, giving him power. How did he see any of them from an alternate zone? Is he psychic enough to see visions across dimensions? That's convenient for him. Then Feist explains that he shaped the Chaos Emeralds' power and gave them form, and there are now 7 emeralds, each of a different color, just like in the games. This annoys me, because the only reason Feist arbitrarily made it this way was because of a meta reason. That the writer wanted to make the comic more like the games because the games are sacred cows. It was working perfectly fine with hundreds of emeralds all over the place. I was shocked how little they used Chaos Emeralds, even in spite of that. The only problem I had was that the emeralds were always just one color, which was really boring. I can understand him making the emeralds different colors for aesthetic reasons, but why the hell would he make it so that there's only 7 of them? Either he fused a bunch of emeralds together to make only 7, and so each individual Chaos Emerald is much more powerful than any emerald had ever been, which you'd think would come up, especially since it would make the Super Emeralds way less powerful in comparison, or he just deprived himself of a huge amount of power by breaking all but 7 of them. Bottom line is, there's absolutely no reason for him to have done this in-universe, so it breaks the willing suspension of disbelief. Anyways, Feist plans to reshape the Zone of Silence to his will with the emeralds, which he hasn't done by now for some reason. Then Sonic and Tails politely, but at least nervously, ask him for Chaos Emerald. At least they explain why. Fortunately, Feist is reasonable enough to at least grant them the favor as a reward for their past efforts. Him being so reasonable comes out of nowhere though. I thought he was pure evil, especially since he was saying it granted him power, like he wanted that. He says as Tails cutely thanks him for a second time in a row that he won't grant another emerald so easily, and the next time they will be challenged as he sees fit, like it's a special zone or something. Even though we already saw the special zone in the Sonic Goes Super and Fights a Giant Lizard Robot issue. So where'd the special zone go? Then we see the king. I like that Sally's mother has been just as worried as her, with stress lines showing how much she cares, but at the same time I feel sorry for her. I really miss the old her. They kinda stopped showing her when the king got put in a coma because I guess she was at his side doing nothing the whole time, and was too unhappy to go hang around with Sally. Of course, the king wakes up, and all he cares about is how stands the kingdom, like a good king should. Who the hell's talking saying that they're with Freedom HQ now? I can't tell because the text bubbles aren't connected to anyone on the actual panel, and the only characters I see are Sonic tapping Tails on the shoulder and winking. I don't know what that means. The king says Little Bean, so he must mean Sally, that's his nickname for her. But why is she talking as if she's only just now started being with Freedom HQ? Sure, the base is new, apparently, but she's always been a freedom fighter. Sally then rushes up to them as they're leaving, sheepishly apologizing for almost forgetting something. I like seeing her like that, it's all sympathetic. She says that Merlin wanted Tails to have the Chaos Emerald once they were done with it, and for some reason Tails questions why. Sally, still smiling nervously, says that she's just returning the favor instead of explaining any further. Why does Tails look worried instead of being grateful? Merlin invites Tails with his emerald to Freedom HQ, a rocky cave with a boring wooden door. I don't really like the design. Why can't they just go in through the Great Oak Slide? And Knuckles, who is also invited, asks what he needs the Guiding Star Gem in him for. Obviously, Merlin's doing this to bring Tails' parents back. On the one hand, I'm happy for Tails, but on the other, having Sonic was good enough as a loving parent, and there's just going to be excess baggage taking up comic space and nagging him to be more careful doing little else. I totally get the comic having returning main characters as parents as major goals though, but it's just going to make him spend less time with Sonic. It's kind of untrue to the franchise, I don't know. Sonic then complains that he wishes he knew where Fiona was because she might have enjoyed watching this. I'm sure she would have loved it, but being conflicted between two morally opposed boyfriends takes a lot of time out of your schedule. She's being a really neglectful poor girlfriend by this point. But at least here it's got an explanation. While with Sally, she had no excuse not to even so much as call Sonic for a couple days to make him think she still hated him for her dad being injured. I expected better of Sally. After they teleport to Argentium, they have a major oh crap moment as Sonic says, "Holy, this is not how I left this place." Then we see the Zorda spaceship shooting lasers, and Sonic asks, who are they fighting though? Those aren't the local BEM ships. How would you know? Just because he was here once doesn't mean you should assume he knows what every single model of BEM spaceship looks like. Fortunately, Tails' parents are right here conveniently enough, and also alive and well, even more conveniently. I don't really like them randomly getting art chipped to having brown fur though, because now they don't look like they're related to Tails at all. If you saw them with him, you'd assume he was adopted. I could forgive the father looking that way, but not the mother. At least have one of them look like Tails. Amadeus, I think he's one talking, explains that the Black Arm started fighting with the Zorda months ago, and will never stop. Sonic quickly rushes to get Merlin reunited with them while saying a strangely mean-spirited line with a smile, saying, "See what you missed, you spaz?" That came out of nowhere. Merlin gets hugged from behind by Rosemary, who looks like a duck with the way her body's bent forwards, and Amadeus shakes his hand, saying that he knew he'd come for them in time. Sonic cheerfully teases, lightly pushing Tails' back, "Go on, you doof." And Tails timidly approaches his parents, reuniting with them in an almost tear-jerkingly sweet moment as they both start crying tears of joy. Rosemary lightly touches the top of his head, saying that already he's so big and handsome, and Tails stutters a whole bunch nervously that everybody calls him Tails. Then both of his parents hug him at once, with Amadeus ruffling his hair, with Tails saying, "I'm never letting go of you again!" They all warp back to Knothole, with Amadeus and Rosemary happily meeting with Elias, who has that crown on that he still doesn't look good in. I prefer his princely design. He has huge eyebrows here. He offers Tails' father right away a place in the court of Acorn. He accepts, of course, saying that his time abroad has exposed him to new, wonderful ideas that I hope I'll get to see, because that sounds interesting. Sonic is disappointed that it wasn't Fiona who showed up to see him at the graveyard, but Knuckles. But shouldn't he have known it was him without seeing him from the scent alone? He's a hedgehog. Hedgehogs have great senses of smell. Also, has Fiona only been missing to Sonic? I assume so, because you'd think that if she was missing a whole bunch to everyone, they would have sent in a missing persons report by now. The same question could be asked of Snively. I thought he would have been seen at Eggman's side as his henchman again when he joined him, but instead he just disappears and none of the freedom fighters seem to notice. You'd think they would have monitored him, and you'd think Fiona would be monitored closely by order of Sally for the same reasons. They're both under suspicion. I have a hard time believing their absence would be so shrugged off. After Sonic snarks looking worried that being disappointed is what he's come to expect of Knuckles, Knuckles shows that they really are friends by not getting angry or annoyed at it, and instead he snarks, "I can see why. This is a terrible spot for a date." Then Sonic jokes, "Oh yeah? Seems right up Julie Sue's alley. Because she's a former villain grunt or because she dresses like a goth? Where'd he get that idea?" Knuckles jokes to leave his girlfriend out of this, having another friendship moment because, again, he's not really mad at him. Then it's naturally lampshaded why Sonic would be morbid enough to be at a graveyard, and explains that he's still hurting over Tommy and Sir Connery because freedom fighters don't normally lose so many heroes that fast. Knuckles relates to that because the Brotherhood went missing, and Sonic complains that with the rise in the villain count, things might get even worse. Yes, they will. So with Ixtus and Mammoth Mongol released from the egg grapes, why haven't they fought Sonic and Tails and kept doing that until they would beat him? Why did they just hide themselves and do nothing? That seems arbitrary. Sonic and Knuckles then joke around some more, with Sonic calling Knuckles weak and Knuckles calling him a slowpoke, being good friends again by not getting offended by the ribbing from each other. And Sonic wonders about Shadow because while he's with Eggman and New Megalopolis, he's not really one of the bad guys. He says, I think he's confused. The story ends with Shadow approaching Eggman and Snively because the comic finally remembered Snively exists, and he threatens them with green fire, saying that they've kept Professor Gerald's diary a secret from him, and he wants the answers from it now. How did he find out that he had the diary? It seems like it's just arbitrarily coming out of nowhere as a lame excuse for him to stop working for Eggman. In the next story, Sonic goes on his first day off in a long time, annoyingly talking to the audience like the start of the comic, and then promptly falls to the ground for his trouble. He finds himself in a base that he calls a vintage Eggman spider hole setup so that his robots could monitor and attack. He notices some old school plans from Robotropolis, and then he realizes Robotniks had a hidden offshore island where he set up a homing device for the Badniks. If the Badniks were defeated in battle, they had programming in them to journey there to be repaired or retired if it's too hard to repair them. I like that concept, it makes a lot of sense. Naturally, Sonic decides to go there using the island coordinates from the map he conveniently found, and notices that the sand on the island is made of solid steel and there isn't a living thing on it. Wait, an artificial island? Let me guess, we're not going to see the duplicate Fiona robot that was deactivated on one of those things again, because that'd be too nice to Tails and interesting. Instead, we'll never see her again for no reason and the plot thread will be forever dropped. Sonic gets knocked out by a thrown spike ball to the head, and when he wakes up, he somehow wasn't killed by that point by the Badniks, because I guess they wanted him awake to know they defeated him as revenge, but Robotnik shouldn't have programmed them to be like that, or to stay on the island after they were defeated in battle and not be useful to them anymore. Sonic wakes up chained to a wooden board as I wonder how any of those animal-like Badniks were able to put him there without opposable thumbs to lift him up or anything. Then Sonic uses a Deus Ex Machina to bullshit break free of the chains by vibrating at supersonic speed. First off, how would that break them with mere vibrations? And second, it shouldn't be supersonic because it's not supersonic. This is back to the really early issues in terms of give Sonic a bullshit power. You can tell the stories by Mike Gallagher, although it's pleasant that he's still writing at this point. This feels like some nice throwback fan service to the good old days. Complete with Pseudosonic arbitrarily being rebuilt to be here and not ever being sent back to Knothole again to be destroyed after that. How did he get here when he was destroyed by Tails' electricity generating tails? Wouldn't his remains have been gotten rid of and used for scrap metal by Rotor? This is so insulting. This is a perfect example of fan service callbacks gone wrong because it makes no sense in universe to happen. Just that alone looks like it's going to be the big black mark in the story. And what's the absolute worst of all is that an entire page is completely wasted on pointlessly recapping an entire issue's worth of Pseudosonic. We didn't need people who didn't know his origin story to remember it, because the story could have worked just as well without knowing who he is. He's probably only going to be in one story anyway, so why bother? Also, how the hell did Pseudosonic know that Sonic was disabled by Poison Sumac at that time? And I hate how the blur from Tails running around in a circle is inexplicably blue instead of the yellow that would match Tails' fur color. It doesn't make any sense. Oh yeah, a brief recap. That's so self-aware of you, text blurb. 3/4 of a page is brief now. Pseudosonic extends a punch at Sonic, and then after the Badniks proclaim way too quickly that the two are evenly matched, the Bat says that they should settle it with a Bighorn challenge. Then the Orbinaut says, you know the rules, but then explains the rules to them anyways. They have to run at each other at full speed and butt heads until the survivor wins. Sonic gets knocked into the ocean and fortunately doesn't proceed to sink right away to his death, and he sees that the island is vibrating like mad from the impact of their collision, even though they only collided with each other and not really the island itself, so why is that affected? And Sonic lampshades the convenience of the fact that his boogie board floated out here because he could never swim. Another Deus Ex Machina, Mike Gallagher's specialty, aside from charming lightheartedness. Then the whole island collapses and submerges from that, sinking like a stone and taking all the Badniks with it. That wasn't the same island the Fiona duplicate was on, was it? Yikes. I guess we'll never know. Then we see the crowdmates say that their survival submersion sequence is complete, and the Caterpillar brags that Sonic thinks they all sank. An air bubble is created around the island as the Badnik compliments Robotnik on actually thinking ahead enough to make that a thing. I guess the robots aren't waterproof enough, so they need the air bubble. As Pseudosonic is being repaired, with annoying X's drawn on his eyes that take me out of it just like with Patch when he was returned home, the Badniks then plan against Sonic. The story ends with the text blurb, definitely not the end. The first story was by Ian Flynn and involved the king being woken up by a Chaos Emerald, and then the Emerald and the Guiding Star Gem are used by Merlin and Knuckles to rescue Tails' parents at last. And just in time too, because the Vem planet that kept them from Tails for so long got what it deserved. The Zord and Black Arms are fighting near it, a planet completely unrelated to both their species, so that was rude of them. And we don't see a single Vem around. So it sure is convenient that Tails' parents are just fine, and it also sure is convenient that Feist was reasonable enough to reward Sonic and Tails for being heroes with a Chaos Emerald, when I thought he was pure evil because there's no indication otherwise. And the story ends with Sonic still hurting over Tommy and Sir Connery visiting their graves, and then Sonic and Knuckles having a great friendship moment. Well, not all questioning Fiona's constant absence, even though you'd think they'd either be questioning her loyalty due to her past, or wondering if she got captured by Eggman by now. Somehow neither her nor Snively have been really noticed to have disappeared in Knothole, and that really seems implausible to me. The second story wasn't as good. It still had that Mike Gallagher kooky, lighthearted charm, but everything went downhill the moment Pseudo-Sonic showed up. It's nice that we get to see him used again when he was a wasted concept, but the idea that he made it here instead of his remains being used for scrap metal by Rotor is just laughable. It's really ill thought out fan service nostalgia. Ignoring that though, I love it, but of course it's also racked with Gallagher's specialty, which is giving Sonic a Deus Ex Machina. First, he vibrates his wrist faster than he ever should be able to in order to bullshit his way out of an unwinnable situation. And to wonder why him vibrating like that doesn't turn him intangible, because that's how he activates that other nonsense power. And then Sonic magically gets a boogie board up to avoid sinking into the water. It's a good thing that wooden board is nice enough to float on the surface of the ocean, just like Sonic was. Also, the artificial island concept had a huge missed opportunity by not being the same one Fiona's duplicate robot was on. It would have been interesting if they found it and reprogrammed it to be good, but that'd be too nice to Tails. I do like that the island sinks, but has an air bubble around it. But how did the Badniks get to their base and avoid the water when the island fell apart so quickly? The plot falls apart if you sneeze at it, a staple of the early writers, which is a shame because it's got great concepts.